Hello and welcome to another Tea Time with me, Amanda Prochaska. One of the things that we get asked a lot these days is, where do I start with my AI implementations? And I say over and over and over again, get your data right. So we're going to dive into what I mean by that here in this video today. All right, so where do I start with AI? A lot of people will just jump right into identify a use case, which I think is a great idea if your data is right. But having been around a lot of companies over my last, 22 years in this business, most of the time your data is not correct. And it's worthwhile before you dive in to AI to make sure your data is really, really ready for the next step. So how do you go about doing that? I'm going to talk about 3 different areas today. The first one is ensuring data quality. And what I want to be doing here is being very practical with you, because a lot of the conversation in the AI world is very fluffy, right? Conceptual, theoretical. But let's talk about the steps to make sure your data quality is ready for AI. So the first thing that you want to do is clean your data. And there's a couple of different areas to focus on. Identify any errors in your data. So for instance, where you have wrong data really in your data set, it could be inconsistencies in that data. It could be wrong numerical data. It could be data where it might need to be kind of made more consistent, as in unit of measures and quantities that you're buying in and translating that so it's all the same, or different currencies. So you have to be thinking through, how do I normalize and make sure that I don't have errors in this data? The next one is making sure that you understand where you have missing values. This happens often in your master data sets, where you'll have missing addresses, missing emails, missing information along the way. So make sure that when you're looking at your data sets, do you have to build in more data to make sure that you don't have those missing values? If you think about how you're going to be using this data with AI, you might have part of your data set that's just non-existent today. And that might be also another case for missing data, right? You need other data that you might not have today to do what you need to do within your AI applications. The third area to clean your data is to remove duplicates, and we see this all the time. You have duplicate vendors, duplicate items, duplicate other master data, duplicate customers. As you are trying to clean your data, it's very important to remove your duplicates, because you're going to get a wrong or incomplete output from your AI system. So let me give you an example. You have an agentic AI, an agent running on your behalf, but you have 14 different IBMs in your supplier master. If you ask that agent to do something with IBM, how is it going to know which one to pick, or does it pick all of them, etc.? So you have to be thinking through, okay, like if I want them to update a supplier record, if there's 14 of them, which one are they going to update? Is there only one good one, or do we need to have those 14? So it's a really important area to be thinking through. The last one when you clean your data is to provide a standardization. Think of addresses. Like you could have various different addresses that actually are the same street, but maybe you abbreviated Ave or left Ave off, or didn't put in the secondary suite address. So you have to be thinking about, like, how standard is my data? Same with item descriptions. We see that all the time. Your item descriptions are not consistent. There's no governance around it. How do you create that standardized format so you can actually leverage that data moving forward? And then once you get through all that for ensuring your data quality, make sure that you're validating your data. You go through your cleansing activity, but cross-check in other source systems, or use some profiling tools along the way to confirm the accuracy and consistency of your data. So once you clean it, double check, test it to make sure you're ready to go. All right, so that's ensuring your data quality. So that's step number one. Step number two, when it comes to preparing your data for AI, is ensuring the data relevance and structure. Okay, so you get cleansing out of the way, but how do you make sure that you have the right data and it's relevant for the AI applications that you're looking to move forward with? So you can, I would start, if I don't have subject matter expertise in that area, collaborate with your SMEs to identify the AI tasks that they're wanting to do with this data. It could be all kinds of different applications. You want to make sure you really have a good understanding of what that scope is and how the data is going to be used. And then you need to make sure that you use, how do I want to explain this? So that you have a feature selection. So you use kind of a correlation analysis and you make sure that you have all of the data all in the, I like to use the example of like, we're going to be focusing on our vendor master, implementing an agentic AI within our vendor master. However, would you ever ask a question of that agent that also needs customer data? What if some of your vendors are customers? Do you need to include your customers into this data set to make sure that you can run everything that you need to run? I hope that that example makes sense here. So then what you need to also do for making sure that your data is actually structure the data. You might need to consider more data labels. So the LLM that is being generated with this data can understand what that data actually means and stands for. You might need to normalize your overall data set and making sure that your numerical data is all normalized, like I said before, currencies, unit of measures. Do you have like 4 decimal points in certain areas and 2 in others? What does that look like? And then ultimately you need to make sure that you can split the data for training and validation and test sets. Kind of like what we've done in the past, where you have like a test instance and you have your training instance. That is the same concept here. Like you have your different data splits so you can actually do the training and do the testing and validation that you need. Okay. That is ensuring your data relevance and structure. The last part of this, and this is something that is a bit tricky to think through, but are you ensuring your data privacy and the ethical aspects of how this data is going to be used? Okay, I'm going to give an example here because I think it's very relevant. So we had a customer who had in their vendor master payments to their executives and their board members because there were certain things that were getting paid to those individuals, and it was best to pay them as a vendor versus maybe putting them on payroll. Well, if I go back to my example of using your vendor data and and focusing your agentic AI application on your vendor master, what if someone were to look up one of your board members and to see how much you've paid them as a vendor? If I have personally identifiable information in my master data sets, how do I protect that? You can use different libraries to make sure that you are segmenting your data sets and protecting where you need to protect that PII or other information that you might not want to have into the data set. Another example, legal matters and the settlements related to legal matters are also put into your data sets from a vendor and spend perspective. Again, do you want that information into your data set? So you have to be spending a good bit of time of what gets included and what is going to be fed into the LLM, which then will be used to train and help with the other applications of AI. Okay. The next one is address any biases in the data sets. So this can maybe more applicable in like your marketing, but it could apply across the board. So definitely something to think through. Have you analyzed your data set for any biases? So gender or race biases, is there sensitivities in the data that you need to be looking through? A skewed representation of the data that might throw off the data set in general. You want to make sure that you mitigate those biases to make sure that you have a good, unbiased, and ethical data set that you are working through. Now, one thing that is very important as you go through all of these things, especially on this last one with privacy and ethics, that you document your processes that you are using to protect the privacy and the ethical standards of your data set. How are you governing this data and tracking the data to ensure that not only did you set it up correctly to begin with, but that you're continuing to protect the privacy and maintain ethical standards of this data set. I know this is a lot, and this is something that I've been committed to for the last several months, is how do we take the theoretical AI concepts into something much more practical. So the next step, preparing for AI, you hear it on the horizon and you want to make sure you are ready to go, please reach out to us at wonderservices.net. We're more than happy to help you, or follow me on LinkedIn. I would be more than happy to chat about it too. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed this video, and cheers until next time.